The workshop on digital inclusion of the urban poor in Kenya, India, and Indonesia took place from the 20th to the 24th of March at the Anna University in Chennai. The project connected 22 researchers, government officials, and community leaders from Chennai in India, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Nairobi, Kenya, and the Netherlands. Let me give you some context to the urgency of the topic of this workshop. 20 million people per year were displaced between 2011 and 2020, of which 2/3 of the impacted people live in Asia. The impact is mostly negative for affected communities, who are most often the urban poor. Furthermore, most resettlement projects suffer from gender blindness, which means that women endure social, cultural, and occupational uprooting, which often has a more profound effect than for men in the same situation. Affected communities are often unaware of their rights and badly informed prior and after resettlement. Despite the recent rise in digital connectivity in India through cheap data plans and cell phones, the divides of space continue to exclude the urban poor. Women in resettlement become even more impoverished as resettlement results in amplified financial, social, and geographical exclusion. During the workshop, we kept asking ourselves two questions. What kind of information do marginalized urban communities need to acquire adaptive capacities in an increasingly uncertain world? And what information do these groups currently aspire to? What are they lacking and why? On day one, we got to listen to the case studies of each country with the aim to learn from each other's expertise. Starting with Yogyakarta in Indonesia, we learned about the project Kampung Cyber, an initiative to digital inclusion that started in 2008 to provide internet connection for every group, especially middle class. Some of the challenges of this project included that not everybody had a PC to access information or knew how to use it. Also, the level of education was not very high. On the other hand, a strong social capital was given. Through the initiative, a network infrastructure was implemented, which became better over time due to better cable quality and money. Some of the strategies were the creation of a network of people who already have computers, computer workshops for the communities in collaboration with universities, and free internet access at the local hub for residents that do not have computer yet. The area in which the Kampung Cyber was being implemented is located in a lively district in Yogyakarta, next to the Taman Sari water temple. Since its implementation, the Kampung Cyber has facilitated the establishment of several online businesses and received international recognition. Moving on to Nairobi, we looked at both the case study example of the Kamakunji Constituency Innovation Hub as well as the ongoing research of a potential digital hub in the informal settlements of Mathare. Let's start with the first one. The hub opened in 2018 and is one of 4 digital innovation hubs in Nairobi and offers programs such as ICT capacity building and coding classes, amongst others. Mathare is the 3rd largest informal settlement with a population of more than 200,000 residents. Some of the shocks and stresses that people in the settlement are facing are theft, fire, job and income loss, poor water supply, illness, and price increase, while the digital inclusion of the settlement could potentially enhance livelihood activities, online work and digital entrepreneurship, health information and services, education, self-learning, payments and financial services. Some of the current challenges are the lack of internet connection, the lack of digital literacy, high internet costs, and risks in misuse. This led to the strategies of providing public Wi-Fi and the installation of ICT centers or hubs combined with digital literacy training programs that harness digital access and use and to provide income opportunities that can sustainably guarantee consumption of technology. The last case study leads us to the city where we came together for this workshop. In 2015, Chennai saw unprecedented flooding as a result of heavy rainfall. From 2015 onwards, people are resettled to high-rise apartments 30 kilometers from the city center. This map illustrates the distance of the resettlement site in Perumbakkam to the location of the former informal settlements. The project came under heavy criticism for its failure to involve the impacted communities, especially women, in the design, development, and implementation. As a result, the communities are facing problems such as a lack of economic opportunities, gender and safety issues, as well as a lack of access to health facilities, just to name a few. Together with women leaders from each block in Perumbakkam, the IRC-DUC helps communicating the community's needs with the local government to improve the current living conditions. The objectives of a digital inclusion of the urban poor in Perumbakkam is to raise affected women's awareness of their rights, to support women in creating business opportunities and reaching clients, to help women to connect with their community and provide them with access to support groups, and to provide them information about government services and programs in and around the new resettlement site. On day 2, we had the chance to conduct interviews with the women leaders in Perumbakkam and visit the site. Before we started, the teams from Kenya, Indonesia, India and the Netherlands were divided into 3 groups with representatives from each country. Like this, the groups could benefit from every country's expertise. Each group had the opportunity to talk to 1 or 2 women leaders from Perumbakkam and learn from their experiences. In the afternoon, we arrived in Perumbakkam, where we were being welcomed by the IRC-DUC and the women leaders, and together with the PhD students from Anna University, we were able to pose more questions to the women. On day 3, the groups created empathy maps and personas, developed first strategies, and evaluated them. The research tool of empathy maps and persona creation implies to slip into someone else's role and explore the needs of this fictional character. By asking yourself what the persona possibly thinks, feels, hears, says, does, or sees, you might explore what the biggest problems or challenges in this person's life are, or what are the opportunities or benefits they will have. In a hands-on workshop, the groups collected information they received from the women leaders and the IRC-DUC and came up with some of the following outputs. Like the concern of the 60-year-old widow who used to work as a cook but who has lost her job due to the resettlement. Or the 35-year-old married mother with 3 children who is the leader of a self-help group and wants to empower women. Or the 28-year-old mother with 2 children that had struggled during her pregnancy and had no access to a hospital. With these personas in mind, the group started brainstorming strategies. In the following, Vera will guide you through the strategy development.
On day 4, the workshop participants developed different strategies for empowering the residents of Perumbakkam, who are facing various issues, as we have heard from Ramona. The 3 groups propose strategies that focus on community empowerment, advocacy, and collaborative mapping. Despite the different approaches, there were some methodological and content-related similarities in the strategies, which I will discuss in a little bit. Firstly, I will very briefly summarize the proposed strategies for you. Firstly, Group 1 aims to empower community via training and collecting all the available information in one physical space of a digital hub that will exist in a current location in Perumbakkam. You can see on this beautiful graphic a more elaborate implementation plan which highlights creation of a website which will contain a lot of data, as well as a digital hub to make a better, more resilient and sustainable community. It highlights community involvement from the start, setting up the elaborate plan for operation from the beginning to prevent resource loss, as well as provision of information and training, as well as ensures long-term sustainability via alumni who pay a contribution fee to sustain the program. Then, Group 2 envisions to empower the voiceless by training the local residents to advocate for themselves. Again, the details are on the slide, and they involve setting up a collaborative system for capacity building that will be based on the needs analysis. An interesting issue here, useful for all of us to consider, is that of financial sustainability. When you are empowering the community to stand for themselves, sometimes against the government, and exercise their rights, the governmental funding might be difficult to secure. Last but not least, Group 3 proposed to conduct an elaborate collaborative mapping of communal needs and opportunities, and then disseminate this data by digital and non-digital means to mobilize community potential. This idea is to profile community to see who can be a champion, who will later be taught on how to collect and co-produce community data, and then these people will host a collaborative analysis on what to use this data for. On day 5, we were summarizing the outputs as well as discussing the way forward. Groups discussed the what, why, who, how issues, as well as sustainability concerns of their plans. One of the main underlying patterns of the proposed strategies was the necessity of needs analysis. It was emphasized that before any intervention takes place, there must be a thorough understanding of the community's needs and priorities. Some groups suggested having a dedicated community researcher who would gather such data, while others proposed a temporarily living lab where people can interact with external researchers. Another important aspect that was emphasized in the proposed strategies was communal ownership. The residents of Perombakam need to feel like they have a stake in the proposed interventions and that they are not just passive recipients of aid. They need to have a feeling that this is not a top-down initiative. They need to feel like they belong, like this is a space created by them, by themselves. The group suggested various ways to facilitate communal ownership, such as communal teaching or trainer of trainers. Rather than relying on external organizations to provide education and training, the preferred approach is to mobilize communal capacity and knowledge, identify existing expertise, and scale it up to the rest of the community. This approach not only empowers the residents but also ensures that the interventions are sustainable and responsive to the community's needs. Afterwards, the groups went back to their cases and discussed the takeaways for their local contexts. This showed that overall the workshop provided useful lessons for participants on digital inclusion for the urban poor. We really hope that the workshop was useful for all the participants and you took some useful lessons away that will aid you in looking into digital inclusion of the urban poor in your national context. Thank you for your time.